There's a kind of love that doesn't announce itself as dangerous. It just quietly starts costing you pieces of yourself. And somehow you keep smiling through it. My lovely anomalies. Let's talk about love that isn't actually love at all. Let's begin. You kept reshaping yourself around them, hoping they'd finally notice the effort. They didn't. Some part of you knew it wasn't right the whole time, but leaving felt scarier than staying broken. That's the whole con. It dresses dysfunction up in the language of romance until you can't tell the difference anymore. You trusted them with the most fragile parts of yourself and asked, gently, to be handled with care. Instead, they used those exact vulnerabilities against you, then somehow made the damage your fault. Wanting basic consistency got labeled as too much. Wanting to be treated decently got labeled as needy. That quiet you got in return was never peace. It was a punishment with a delay on it. Every distant moment, every unanswered message was intentional. Not because you weren't enough, but because your presence reminded them of exactly what they lacked. You stayed anyway, even as your own instincts kept warning you, because you believed effort could fix someone who never asked to be fixed. You offered something valuable and watched them spend it carelessly on people who meant nothing. You kept excusing it, kept lowering the bar, and in doing that you accidentally taught them there'd never be a real consequence. So they relaxed into taking without giving anything back, comfortable in the knowledge you'd stick around no matter what. That's the exact thing people like that feed on, your fear of losing them. Look at where that leaves you now, worn down but upright. Toxic love isn't sudden, it's erosion. It quietly convinces you you're smaller than you are. None of that says anything about your character. It says something about the trap you were standing in. One where scraps got mistaken for a full meal, and being chosen felt like something you had to earn through suffering. It was never about your shortcomings. It was about their inability to face someone who genuinely cared without flinching. Real affection unsettled them because it was unfamiliar. And somehow you still found yourself defending them afterward, excusing the disappearances, protecting their reputation in rooms full of people who could see exactly what was happening. They convinced you silence about your own pain was some form of devotion. But loyalty stripped of respect isn't loyalty. It's just compliance dressed up nicer. You gave them access to hurt you and trusted they wouldn't. They did anyway. What kept you hooked wasn't connection. It was the unpredictability, warmth one day, nothing the next. They got better at the manipulation. You got better at absorbing it. Somewhere in there, your own life quietly became secondary to theirs. People like that were never actually after love. They wanted a level of control that love doesn't require. And even now, some part of you still wants a message, a sign, some proof it mattered. Here's the harder truth. They don't miss you. They miss having that kind of pull over someone. The ego of being needed by someone they never had to reciprocate with. That's not affection. That's just leverage wearing a softer face. You brought intensity. They brought avoidance dressed up as calm. You offered them honesty. They offered games. Everything you gave got met with some version of still not enough, which was never really about you. It was about a hunger nothing could satisfy. They kept taking until there was nothing left, then acted confused about your emptiness. Everyone praised your resilience, but resilience isn't the same as being treated well. Real strength is being able to admit the truth of a situation, and the truth here is simple. You deserved far better than what you got. What actually stings isn't even their behavior. It's how effortless it was for them. How easily they slept at night after wrecking your peace during the day. Meanwhile, you carried it quietly and somehow still ended up blaming yourself in the mirror when you'd already given more than they ever earned. When someone dysfunctional encounters someone genuine, they usually don't rise to meet it. They sabotage it instead. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your steadiness exposed exactly how unsteady they were. What hurt most wasn't even the betrayal. It was realizing you'd meant every word, and they hadn't meant any of theirs. That's the mechanism of this kind of love. It embeds itself inside your wounds and convinces you that pain is evidence of depth. It isn't. Constantly fighting to be chosen isn't romance. It's exhaustion wearing a disguise, and nobody should have to live like that. Every time you forgave them, it reinforced the lesson that there'd be no real cost to mistreating you. They never actually expected you to leave. They assumed your love made you endlessly available. But your absence speaks louder now than all your pleading ever did. And somewhere, quietly, that's finally starting to register with them. Not through arguments, through silence. You're allowed to be angry at them and at yourself for staying as long as you did. But don't turn that anger inward for having loved fully in a world that rewards detachment. That capacity to feel deeply is the one thing they were never able to take from you. You didn't just outlast them, you outlasted your own guilt, your own hesitation, the voice that kept offering them one more chance. Walking away was both an ending and a beginning. They never actually apologized, not really. Instead, they reframed everything, so you ended up feeling guilty for reacting normally to being hurt. You expressed pain, they called it drama. You asked for clarity, they called it neediness. Slowly, you started internalizing that framing, softening yourself so your feelings wouldn't inconvenience them. They preferred that smaller version of you, not out of love, but because it kept them comfortably in control. Underneath it, they always knew the truth. They couldn't actually match you, and your full presence made that obvious. They only reappeared when they sensed you slipping away, which was never about missing your heart. It was about missing access to it. Every "I miss you" rang hollow, because they weren't returning to fix anything. They were returning to interrupt your progress, to keep you tethered to the possibility of them, instead of moving forward without them. You were never their future. You were a fallback, somewhere to land when their ego took a hit elsewhere. And you let that happen for longer than you should have, hoping, eventually, would turn into something real. It never did. They simply liked knowing the option was still open. Now you're left with wounds nobody else can see, the kind that flare up at the mention of a name, a song, a date on the calendar. That's what this kind of relationship does. It doesn't just end, it lingers. People tell you to move on like healing works on command. They don't know how much of yourself you dismantled trying to make it work. How many nights you waited by the phone, hoping. That waiting is its own kind of addiction, and breaking it happens slowly, not all at once. You'll start seeing them clearly instead of through hope. You'll stop absorbing blame that was never yours. And eventually you'll look back and recognize exactly how far you've come. Don't expect applause when that day comes. People who never self-reflect aren't going to start now, because admitting the truth would mean admitting what they lost. So they'll pretend indifference instead. But silence carries the real story. And in that silence, the phone that doesn't light up, the name that doesn't appear, the regret eventually settles in. Quiet, slow, permanent. You spent a long time repeating a lie just to fall asleep. that they'd eventually change. You gave them patience they hadn't earned, all because losing them felt scarier than losing yourself. That's the actual trick toxic love plays, convincing you inconsistency is safer than solitude. You weren't afraid of being alone. You were afraid of being erased, replaced overnight like nothing had happened. That fear kept you measuring your worth by how much you could silently endure. How much longer could you keep sacrificing yourself for someone unwilling to do the same? You extended grace repeatedly, and it got treated like weakness rather than generosity. You taught them your love had no boundaries, and once someone learns that, they stop valuing what costs them nothing. The real issue was never loving too intensely. It was not requiring the same intensity back. You made their inconsistency easy to live with. But eventually you stopped answering, stopped chasing, and that absence is what finally got their attention, because people like that don't recognize value until it's unavailable. So here's the actual truth. Stop hunting for closure in the exact place that hurt you. Stop waiting on an apology that isn't coming. What matters is you chose yourself, chose peace over the chaos, quiet over the noise. That's what healing actually looks like. Not dramatic, just decisive. Some nights it'll still ache, and that's fine. Healing was never a straight path. But every time you resist reaching back out, you're winning against the version of yourself that once mistook pain for proof of love. It's almost funny how they'll act like you imagined the whole thing. Like the doubt, the confusion, none of it really happened. They'll hurt you, then act baffled that you reacted. You asked for basic honesty, they called it pressure. You asked to be loved properly, they called it obsession. In reality, you were only ever asking for standard human decency. But to someone used to giving the bare minimum, even reasonable boundaries feel like an attack. You speak up once, and suddenly you're the unreasonable one. It's a strategy, not an accident, painting you as unstable so they never have to be accountable. And for a while, you believed it. But it was never that you were too much. It was that they were never enough, and they always knew it. So instead of growing to meet you, they chipped away at you instead. Your confidence, your instincts, piece by piece, until you barely recognized the person in the mirror. That's how this kind of relationship actually kills you. Not all at once. Gradually. Self-worth first, then clarity, then peace, until you're sitting in your own confusion, wondering how loving someone turned into hating yourself. If anyone tells you that's normal, leave immediately. Now they'll perform survivorhood, posting about toxic people like they weren't the toxic one. Don't engage with that. Truth doesn't need you to defend it. It holds up on its own. You're not here to convince anyone of anything anymore. You're here to rebuild, even if that means doing it completely alone. It won't happen overnight. It happens boundary by boundary. If you still miss them tonight, that's allowed. Healing isn't about pretending the love wasn't real. It's about refusing to keep suffering in its name. Missing someone doesn't make you weak. Not going back is what makes you strong. That strength is what they'll eventually regret losing. Not your attention, but access to a version of you who would have gone through anything for them. No revenge required. Just distance, and the kind of quiet that says more than any argument could. People who feel empty inside are drawn to light, but don't know how to hold on to it responsibly. Being near someone genuinely warm made them feel exposed, small by comparison. You were never the problem, you were the reflection, and not everyone's ready to look at themselves clearly. You tried to build something lasting. They kept undermining it instead. For a long time you assumed the failure was yours, but none of it was ever real on their end. They liked the comfort you provided, They never actually wanted to grow into someone worthy of it, because that would have required looking honestly at their own damage. Most people choose breaking someone else over fixing themselves. So what now? You get back up, bruised, tired, but still intact, and you convert all of it into direction instead of despair. You stop waiting for the right words from them, because even if they came, they wouldn't mean it. What they'd actually be missing is the version of you who didn't yet know better. That version's gone. You buried her the day you picked peace over familiar chaos. Nobody applauds this kind of survival, but you did survive. Emotional depletion, manipulation, feeling like a stranger inside your own life. And now you rebuild quietly, at your own pace. Eventually someone will look at you and wonder why you're so guarded. You'll just smile, remembering the last time you gave everything without protecting any of it, and what that almost cost you. Some quiet part of you might still hope they'll come back changed, finally say the right thing. Let that hope go now. That day isn't coming, because people like that only return with bait, not honesty. They come back when circumstances force humility, never because love actually transformed them. Pain doesn't rewrite someone. Only they can do that, and usually they won't. If they think about you at all, it's not longing. It's missing the control they used to have. Growth means not answering, not out of spite, because you've outgrown being anyone's emotional safety net. Real peace means releasing the hope that they'll become someone different. Grieve the version you imagined, because that version never actually existed. You fell for potential, not reality. And potential doesn't show up for you at 2 a.m. Every difficult relationship comes with a highlight reel worth remembering fondly. The good nights, the affection. Those moments were real, but they weren't the whole truth. The whole truth lived in how they treated you when it actually mattered. And the truth now is simple. You stayed far longer than you should have. But you're not staying anymore. Funny how quiet a place gets once you stop begging it to love you back. Let them keep the wreckage. You were never meant to live inside a fire you didn't start. Watching you walk out of that one, Joker.